So again, you've gotten the listing. Now what? What am I doing? Like, okay, I have a listing. That's exciting. Okay, I'm gonna make money. But again, a listing does not guarantee money. Please be very clear. You need to close the listing. So getting listings is the first hurdle. But making sure that the actual listing closes is another, a whole nother process in itself. And that's really when the work begins. So the first thing you want to do is this is kind of like a precursor / first thing that you should do is you want to have a team in place. You need to have partners and people that you've aligned with. If obviously you're new, you probably don't already have this, but you should lean on other seasoned agents and other people in your sphere of influence to line you with people that are reputable doing whatever it is that they do. Specifically, inspectors, attorneys, mortgage lenders. So those are kind of your best friends for the most part. There's going to be a lot of other people that you may lean on for things, architects when you have issues with permits, or expediters, title company. But these people are your sort of bread and butter. You should have 2 to 3 different sources for all 3 of these partners, because these are the people that are very involved with whenever you get a listing or a buyer. So again, inspectors, attorneys, a mortgage lender. So when you do come across these people, if you say don't have firsthand experience with using those people, you should reach out to them and make a relationship with these people. Say, hey, listen, I am on the new end. I heard that you have you do good business, and I just want to make myself known that I'm going to be using you and referring you to clients that I have, and I hope we have a long lasting relationship. So you kind of start off on the right foot, and then with time and transactions, you'll start really learning if these people fit your style, how you do things, and so on and so forth. But it's very important to have a team, and the reason that's important is you have more control when you are using people that you are already familiar with. What happens a lot more often than not, especially for newer agents, is you don't have the confidence to kind of guide your client with certain people they should be using, and they go about using Joe Schmo that their cousin used one time. And let me tell you, I went through those hurdles, and when you don't have someone competent in the deal, involved in the deal, say that's a loan officer that he just never picks the phone up, or an attorney that also does the same thing or is moving very slow. It helps when you have people in pocket that already what they do, and that they deliver on what they're supposed to do. So having a team, that's your number one thing. That's kind of, again, a precursor to getting the listing. But when you get the listing, you definitely need to solidify this if you have not already done so. So again, first step, have your team in place. Second, so you want to, I set the expectation with my client, the seller, pretty much before we even sign documents. But for yourself, if you haven't done that, or you want to reiterate the things that you talked about, because people forget things, it's very important for you to have that conversation with your seller client, about how this is going to go, because you are the professional. You have to be very clear with everyone involved about what you bring to the table. And part of that does require some confidence, but you need to sound like what it is you're kind of talking about, and also how things are going to go. It's like, hey, listen, we're hitting the market this day. We're going to do a first open house this day. I'm going to touch base with you 2 times a week to let you know how things are going with the traction on the property, on the market. But you are setting that expectation. So those conversations are things you want to have immediately. Beforehand is best, and then again when you get the listing and sign documents. But at the very minimum, when you sign the listing, it's like, hey, listen, this is how it is that things are going to go between our relationship. We're going to communicate this way, because if you don't set that precedent, you're just going to allow the seller to wander mentally and speculate and assume a lot of things that probably aren't the truth or what's actually happening. So it's your job to do that. So creating that expectation with your seller client is crucial. So that's kind of your next step. So your team first, you set an expectation with your client. the next thing is, again, you're now officially on the market. You have a listing, you have listing agreement signed. You say you put your property on the market. So this wasn't in my notes, but it's very important, you guys. You know, I know obviously if you're newer agents, finances is going to be something that you're cognizant to. You're going to, you know, try to find ways to not have to spend money, especially when you haven't made money yet. But the place that I see that happen more often than not is the presentation of the listing, specifically the photos and video tours and 3D tours. This again was not in my notes, but that's extremely important. You need to spend money to make the listing look as good as it possibly can. So it's important that you're talking to your seller so that they can kind of get the property, you know, in the best shape possible, which is just, you know, you don't really need to do too much in New York City, to be honest with you, to get a property ready. You just need it to flow, so that when people are in the property, there's clear pathways for them to maneuver. So decluttering more often than not is usually all that a property needs, unless it's in really bad shape. So that being said, don't skimp out on professional photography. You know, when you need them, you can give them as short as 24-hour notice. It only costs you for photos, I believe, it's just $150 or $175. With video, it's $200. It's not that much money. Don't ever take pictures with your phone or allow somebody to take pictures with their phone. You will hate yourself later, and the property won't move as quick as it will if you just get professional photography. So I just was important for me to kind of throw that in there, even though it's not in my notes, because I see that more often than not, literally your property will get sold just because you took professional photos, because there are a lot of properties on the MLS. And the pictures are really bad. So that's very important. So once you've actually done that, your property's on the market, it's live in MLS, you want to get organized. You want to have some sort of log for all inquiries for this property. So any buyer or realtor that's calling you, you want to keep track of that. You can do yourself when you're starting out. Eventually, when an admin doing it, you also can use Showing Time. Showing Time is kind of already affiliated with MLS. If you go to any listing, most of the time they have like a schedule with Showing Time. It's an inexpensive service. I believe it's $20 a listing. They manage all the people that come through in and out. So you don't have to, you know, kind of log that yourself, but you need a log. You want to have all the people that have inquired, so that, you know, if you do a price reduction or you need to blast everyone that has interest in it, you just have accountability on just being able to still keep in contact with those people. So I know sometimes as realtors, the organization can be a little bit challenging, but this is one of those places where you can't afford not to be organized. So organize, use Showing Time. It's inexpensive if you know, if you're not naturally good at that. So the next step is, but actually before I jump into the next step, are you guys kind of following so far? You could type in the chat, just, you know, also if there's any questions at this present moment, please, you know, feel free to jump in.
Amelia?
Yeah.
Real quickly, your connection is going in and out just a bit.
Okay.
So, you know.
All right, got it. Hold on a second. All right. I hope you guys were able to hear most of that, if not all of that. I don't know why my connection is doing that.
So right now it looks okay. I don't know if it's just you have to face or whatever.
Christina, if you could just keep me posted, because there's no way really, I mean, it says fine on my end, but I'll need to know from you if like something is not right or it's not looking right. You could just jump in or write on the chat, just let me know, hey, Emilio, your connection's acting up. But it's fine right now, right?
Yeah, it's okay right now.
Okay, great. So yes, back to what I was saying. So if up to this point you guys have any questions about anything I said, please let me know, or concerns or any of that stuff. Okay, so Stephanie asks, are there photographers that will Photoshop furniture in? For sure. You can do 3D modeling, and there's a lot of services that do that. Again, I use HomeJob. They have a lot of different packages and type of photographers and videographers that fit what I'm looking for, depending on the listing. Like if I have a real grand listing, like I have a listing now, 54 Huron Road. That's a really big house. It's an expensive house. It's 1.25 million. I got an extra package with a drone for that particular property. Every property you sell won't probably need something like that. So you kind of use a case-by-case scenario. I believe they also do photoshopping for you to put furniture in if you want to like stage a property digitally. But there's so many services now that do that. You can check them out. If not, you know, there's so many of them out there that you could kind of refer to. Hopefully that answers your question. Is there anything else so far? Steve, what's up?
What was the name of the company? Home Job?
Home Job. That's Home J-A-B.
Oh, Jab.
Yeah, Home Job. Yeah, actually, you know what? I'm gonna write how you write it in the chat here. So that's how you spell it. If you Google them, they'll come up. They're great. I've referred them to other top agents. They also love their service. So I definitely recommend them. And they have so many different packages for whatever type of listing you're trying to sell. All right. Is there anything else before I continue? All right, cool. So again, I'm recapping. You have your team in place. You created expectation with your seller client. You're organized with all the incoming inquiries for that particular property. Now the next step. So you at this point now have offers on the table for said property that you now have listed. You want to negotiate the proper deal for your client. So you want to be very thorough with the entertainable offers. That doesn't mean every offer that comes in. I say entertainable because you want it should be offers that you know are in the neck of the woods as to where you're trying to sell, what your client is looking for. So those offers is very important for you to vet those offers. More often than not, realtors nowadays, they get offers and they get overly excited. Sometimes, especially when the numbers are really good, and they don't do their due diligence to make sure that that can actually come to fruition. So specifically, the activities you want to do is when you start getting offers that are entertainable, I usually do this before I even bring it to the attention to my client, so I look like the man. I call the loan officer for whomever the buyer is that's giving me the offer, whether I am the person representing them as a due agency or if they're coming from another realtor. It doesn't matter. I call the bank and I make sure that things look good on the file, which is that they can satisfy this mortgage. So, you know, asking questions about DTI, there's certain restrictions on things you can ask and can't ask, but just kind of let the loan officer tell you what's really going on with their situation. You obviously let them know that they're trying to buy the house for X amount. Can they buy this house for X amount? You know, is the DTI close? You know, is it a tight deal? Verifying the down payment. Hey, did you verify that they have X amount of money, because that's what they told me that they have for down payment? You know, asking these questions, like, I'm very thorough. And the reason you do these things is you don't have an issue after the fact. You figure these things out before so that you have a very nice, seamless deal. So that being said, another thing you want to do as well is you want to make sure that what's happening a lot now, because there's a shortage of inventory in most neighborhoods. Like, I have a property in Canberra Heights right now. My phone hasn't stopped ringing for this particular property. We priced it very aggressively, as in what we felt like was a nice market value price. And what that did was exactly what I told my client was going to do. Is I set the expectation that we were going to get X amount, and that if she allowed me to price it the way that I wanted to, that we would have a bidding war and we would likely sell it over asking. And that's exactly what's happening right now. So that being said, what's also extremely important after you've vetted your offers with the bank of the buyer is to make sure that you're not going to get into contract at a price that you're going to have an issue with later because of the appraisal. So properties now, and I've been talking to a lot of other realtors about this right now, because the shortage of inventory, properties are overselling. And when they oversell, you may have an issue, because if the appraisal value comes in less than what you say, in my case, that property is 639. We have offers at 650 plus. I know that if we go over 660, my seller will love it, but the bank won't, and they're going to dead stop the deal. So if I understand that, I jump in front of the bullet and I talk to the attorneys and let them know that we want verbiage that if appraisal is short, because when an appraisal is short, it allows either party to exit the deal. They have the choice to do so. So in that case, I jump in front of it, and before we even get into contract, I'm letting them know, hey, if we don't have an appraisal that hits this, we're gonna be here, and we already agreed about it. Rather than later, the expectation was not set, and we're scrambling, and now we have a deal that may fall apart, and already a month has gone by. So you can save 30 days easily by doing exactly this. So do your homework with your comps and your market values. Only go into contract with a deal that you know is going to close. So is that clear? You guys following that? That makes sense? I know I like threw a lot of things that, you know, maybe a newer person wouldn't necessarily know. But you guys following me? I got like thumbs up or yes?
Yeah, I have a question. I have a question.
Yeah,
So is it okay for you to contact the buyer's lender or attorney to do that due diligence?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, what I do is I like to cross my bases, and I also don't like to overstep. So let's assume that it's another broker, because obviously, if there's no other broker involved, you 1000% have there's no issue at all to call said bank. But if you are working with another realtor, they if you don't give them that kind of notice, they might feel like you're overstepping, or that you're kind of like stepping on their toes a little bit. So what I would do is, if there's another realtor involved representing that buyer, I call them and I say, hey, listen, you know, I like your offer. Before I accept that offer, I need to do my due diligence, and I need to call the loan officer. That courtesy call and telling them that you're going to do that, usually it makes it so everything's copacetic, and they usually will be like, oh, hey, you know, we're excited to hear that you're entertaining the offer. Go right ahead and call. Now, if I get pushback from the broker, I'm already got my antennas up, because now I'm like, why don't you want me to call the bank? Is there an issue that I don't know about? And it's gonna come out anyways, because again, most realtors won't do what I'm telling you to do. They just pray and hope that the deal closes, and I don't do that. That's why my deals don't. I've never lost a deal, and I've been doing this for 7 years. Not gonna work. But yeah, so you can definitely do that. I would encourage you to do so.
All right, cool. Thanks a lot.
No problem. So, anything else on that before I, move forward?
So, Emilio, who gets the appraisals? That the buyer would get the appraisal done?
Yes. So remember that the appraisal process is a joint effort with the bank that's funding the deal. So the bank that's giving the money to buy this house, they're doing their due diligence with an appraisal. So the buyer has to cross this path. Their bank is going to send someone over there as an independent company to verify the value of that home. And if that home is not to the standard or the price of the contract that's in place, because an appraisal happens after you have a contract. But I like to do my homework before the fact. So again, I'm not wasting time. So you do the same procedure an appraisal would do when you're vetting your offers, to make sure that you don't get a bump in the road when the real appraisal comes. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
You sure? You don't sound too confident.
Well, I'm trying to think about the appraiser. I mean, if I'm the buyer, the appraiser is going to come in low. The appraisal for the house is going to come in low all the time.
No. Well, be clear that the appraiser's job is to find apples and apples of what's being sold. So if you did your job as a listing agent, which is kind of the whole topic of this class, you should have priced it properly where it should be priced at. You did the homework like an appraiser before the fact, and that's likely why you even got the business. You're like, hey, John Smith, thank you for selling your house for me. The number we talked about was this. This is what we're selling it for, because this is top dollar. Now, the appraiser should be piggybacking, because again, if an appraisal really comes short, it's not on the, if there's a buyer's agent, it's not on the buyer's agent that they messed up. You messed up, because you are the gatekeeper. So if you allow the deal to go into contract at a price that you know is not going to close, you messed up. So that's why it's very important for us to do our homework to make sure that we're locking in contracts at the price that it's supposed to actually be at. You got to do your homework to make sure that you're at a price that is appraisable. So that's what's, extremely important. So the appraiser's job is not to come to kill your deal. Their job is to just make sure that they're loaning out for the proper amount of money. So that's what that is.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Anything else before I continue, guys? All right, cool. So again, you're negotiating. So that step, in summary, you're negotiating the proper deal for your client. You're being thorough with all the entertainable offers. You're calling the LO, verifying the buyer standing, checking current market values and comparables. And this is also that you ensure you have a seamless deal with the accepted buyer before you give them accepted offer. So you did all your homework. You have X buyer, everything checks out, the bank looks good, the offer's good, you feel confident about it, you give them a ring, you say, hey, listen, your offer is, you have an acceptable offer. Very, very important, acceptable offer. And what that means is that we will take that offer. It's not an accepted offer. Me exactly to doing business with you a little bit on the long end, but an inspection and a contract signed with down payment within 7 days, and you then at that point you have a legitimate buyer and a legitimate deal. Just having a listing is just having a listing. Contract is money. That's what you want. So that being said, now at this point, when you have somebody that is interested in purchasing your property, the more that you can involve, this is the next step, the more that you can involve your preferred partners, obviously in an ethical and legal way, will make your life so much easier. So if you have, say, a direct buyer, and you have your team in place, hey, listen, do you guys have an inspector, to inspect the property? Oh, no, hey, we kind of don't, we're open to recommendations. Give them recommendations, because again, the more that you can be, involved, especially with people that do good business, it will make your life easier in the long run. So that being said, you want to get that, figured out. Hopefully, it's somebody that you have some sort of familiarity with that has the inspection, because after you have an accepted offer, that is the next step. Before the contract is done, you are doing an inspection. The buyer will do an inspection. More often than not, especially in New York City, an inspection is taking place. An engineer comes, and their job, honestly, is to come and find things wrong with the house. That literally is what they do. You just need to set the expectation with the buyer agent or with the buyer directly before the fact about whatever might be going on, so it does not blindside them, and you hopefully will have a seamless road to the contract. Because what can happen is if things blindside them or something you didn't know come up, you can have a deal fall apart before you even get the deal. So it's very important to, again, have your partners in place. Hopefully they're, helping them out. Maybe they need an attorney as well. You can start putting them in contact with maybe another attorney that you have. Obviously, you can't have the same attorney as a seller's attorney, which might also be somebody that you work with. And you just want to give them options, with some other people that do good business. So once the inspection is done, let's assume things did maybe pop up, but they're rather minor. Let's, maybe a couple faucets are like leaking slightly. Maybe some tile is coming up in certain floors, but very minor cosmetic stuff. More often than not, those things usually don't get put into contract. Usually a buyer kind of has to eat those things if they're small stuff. But if they're kind of more, let's assume like maybe a water stain. Maybe it was fixed at some point, but it wasn't patched back up, or the paint wasn't done. Maybe those are things that may get put into the contract. You, at this point, once an inspection is completed, you want to get everybody in the same boat. It's, hey, inspector sent the inspection report. It gets sent to all attorneys. Everybody's communicating with one another. All the terms and the conditions are agreed upon. So again, you just have an easy deal. These things, certain things that get put into the contract. Again, you have sort of people talking with one another, the buyer's attorney, the seller's attorney, make sure they're on the same page. Again, so that you don't have anything sort of pop up after the fact. These are all things that you can kind of figure out beforehand. So Inspection gets complete, a contract gets drafted. So you have a contract now. Now you have potential, a real pipeline, a financial pipeline, as long as the deal closes. So you already obviously located a buyer. Your seller's happy. He's getting what it is that he's supposed to be, getting at the closing table. Now it's your job to get them there. So everyone at this point is already in communication with one another. What your job is to do is to monitor the deal closely. My deals don't go into contract and then it's just autopilot. I'm checking in on my deals 2, sometimes 3 times a week, making sure that everybody is talking to one another and things are moving along. What more often than not delays deals or cause complications is the bank and them processing of the loan and the buyer getting them the documents that they need, and then also clearing the title, which is happening with the title company and the attorneys. So you're talking to all those parties to make sure that they're doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. So again, you actually reach the closing table, because I've talked to other realtors, and the amount of attention that they give to their deals usually reflects on how long that their deals close. Like my deals usually close in a rather fast time frame because I'm on top of everybody, but I'm also not micromanaging, people. I'm just, checking in. It's like, hey, listen, what do I need to do to make sure that this happens by this day? Oh, hey, if you could call the buyer and tell them this, or you could tell the seller that, hey, send me this document. I'm on top of that. It's like, hey, listen, I just spoke to the attorney. They told me you're missing XYZ. When do you think you could get that to them? So it shows professionalism. Again, it just makes sure that you close in a timely fashion, and it just makes your life easier. So those are things that you're doing to monitor the deal to make sure that you actually get to closing. So again, you want to make sure that the title gets cleared in a timely fashion. There's usually documents that need to get sent on the buyer and the seller's end. You're just watching that closely. So once you've kind of got past that point, title gets cleared, appraisal checks out, all that good stuff. You essentially are getting sort to the end stages of the deal, and hopefully you're talking about a closing date. So at this point, this is when you usually get a little bit more excited because money's coming. There's probably 1 or 2 milestones still that need to be hit to make sure that you get to closing table successfully. Make sure the buyer is content with everything that's going on. Once you start talking about a closing date, the attorneys are usually the ones that dictate that. They have to talk to all parties to make sure they're free at X date, X time. What the next thing that you're going to be doing is scheduling a final walkthrough. So a final walkthrough is essentially the last time that a buyer gets to see the property before the title gets transferred and you get to the closing table. So final walkthrough I've seen it happen many of times. Final walkthrough can sometimes create chaos or potential issue. And more often than not, that's usually coming from everyone not speaking to one another, or the buyer. Typically, I like to do my final walkthrough within 48 hours of the closing to make sure that there's not this grand change in between time. That a final walkthrough is essentially the buyer seeing the property before they close to make sure that it is in the same condition and state that they expect it to be. So if there were things in the contract that were supposed to be fixed or things like that, or maybe there weren't things in the contract, they're just visiting the house to make sure it looks exactly the same. Obviously, if maybe the owners were moving, maybe they moved things out and things look a little bit different. That's why you want to obviously be at the final walkthrough, make sure the buyer's there and make sure they feel comfortable with how the property looks. And if you have issues and things like that, you kind of sort of figure it out. It's kind of hard for me to give you guys examples of what that might look like. It could be a lot of different things, but hopefully it's very minor, if not anything. If it's major stuff, then you might have an issue, but typically you want to bring that up beforehand. If it's minor issues, I usually wait until I get to the closing table and we just kind of discuss it there and figure it out, just to not ruffle feathers more than I have to before we actually get to closing table. Again, if it's major, then we have to have a talk and we got to get the attorneys involved. So final walkthrough passes.
Hi, Emilio. You're going out a little bit. I can't hear you.
Hopefully everything is copacetic, and then you are going to the closing and you.
Are you muted, Emilio?
Yeah, I muted myself on purpose. I was just trying to run a
Awesome.
I was just trying to reset myself a bit.
Okay.
How are you guys hearing me right now? Is everything kind of clear?
It's still a little
not?
spotty.
Yeah.
It's going in and out a little bit.
All right, give me a second. Yeah, give me a second. All right, how is it right now? How do you guys hear me? You hear me clearly?
Right now,
Everything-
yes, but it's
Okay.
it's still a little spotty.
Okay. All right, I should, my bar's all the way up now. It should be better. Hopefully it's better. You guys hear me good?
I hear you good.
Okay, awesome. So let me know if that happens again. It shouldn't. Sorry about that, guys. So again, closing, your final walkthrough is complete, your scheduled closing. You honestly at a closing don't really do anything but just sit there and play with your phone. I usually don't even go to closings, to be honest with you, nowadays, but you know, especially if these are one of your first few listings or your first listing, you want to be there. So you know, COVID obviously kind of restricts that in certain cases. I'm not sure. I think depending on the attorney that you use, they may let you know if you can be there or not be there. So you could kind of take that, you know, case by case. But really, you know, you just kind of, that's the day you're kind of collecting your check, because everything is hopefully already, you know, copacetic and figured out. So a lot of the things that I talked about, that's pretty much in summary everything that I wanted to cover in terms of, like, I feel like highlights of things that you should know and things you should do to get a property, you know, get a listing closed. Let me see. I have yeah, I think pretty much majority of the things that I wanted to cover to highlight, I pretty much kind of did. I guess before, you know, kind of concluding officially, is there any things that I maybe touched on or did not touch on that you guys feel like you would come across or have come across in the past that, you know, we could kind of like chit chat about and just powwow and see, you know, if I can kind of give you some insight.
Emilio, who's looking out for you in the closing for your commission? When you say you don't have to be there to.
Oh, okay.
Who's looking
Yeah, that's a
out?
good question. Yeah, that's a really good question. So that goes back to why having a team, that literally was the first thing that I talked about. Having a team and people that you know, do good business at a high level, and also know that you're somebody that is looking to have that relationship, or you already have that relationship, is so important. So my preferred attorney, I mean, I have two, but there's really my number one. Those are my people. Like, I know these people very well. The reason why I don't really go to showings, I set that expectation with my clients. So obviously they know, they don't just like go there expect I'm gonna be there, but the attorneys know that they just mail my checks out. So they're there making sure that compensation gets cut, because they know that they're my people. And remember, I'm the one really funding their business because I'm bringing them a client.
But it's really not your attorney, Emilio, is it? Your attorney doesn't
of course, the attorney is technically hired by the client. But that's why, again, if this is somebody that is part of your network, they're going to look out for your best interest. That doesn't mean that they're going to do anything unethical with, you know, the client that they're supposed to be serving. But they know that I'm the realtor that gives them business, and we do business, and I referred their services. So why would they want to cut me out or do a disservice to me? I've never had any issue like that occur, because they know before you actually get to the closing table, a commission bill gets sent to the attorneys. Both attorneys see this. So if there's any issue related to compensation or commission, it's brought up already. So that's why I'm not worrying by any means. They know that when checks get cut, that a check gets cut for Keller Williams Landmark 2 and is getting mailed to Emilio. So you sort of put these things into place. Obviously, in the beginning, and you closing listings, you're going to be there anyway. So you make sure that no funny business happens. But you start developing your business where you don't have to necessarily be there. Like, I mean, Vinny's on the call now. He knows I don't like to waste time doing things I don't have to do. There's many ways that you can leverage a business. So that's just
Is it a headache? Is it a headache if your check doesn't get cut at that closing meeting?
I've never had that happen. And if that happens, there's going to be some big repercussions. Let me tell you, I need my money. Like when everybody else gets their money, I better be getting my money because I'm the one that made this deal happen. And I really firmly believe that when I'm involved in a transaction, it only closes because of me, because I do all the extra stuff, the things that another realtor won't do. So that's the type of confidence you guys want to bring to your clients too, because it's crucial.
Yeah, I can jump in there with a realtor war story about getting paid.
Okay, great. Yeah, Vinny, give it to us.
Yeah, I had to do. First of all, I would say, man, you're looking real glorious. You're looking like the realtor Jesus with that light hitting you. You was looking like Jesus realtor. I just want to say, with the beard, you was looking like.
I had to turn the blind.
Real official. I saw.
Thank you, Vinny. Thank you.
But, yeah, I had a deal. 3 people on the deal. It was 2 sisters and 1 brother. They were going to take a whole lot less for the house. Got in, gave them a great number. Everything went well. The neighbor comes next door, says, "Yeah, I want to make an offer." At that time, for some reason, the seller thought that she was the realtor now. So she starts asking about commission. Is there a reduction? I said, no, if you refer to your contract, you're not in business with me. I work for you. I don't get you involved in a lawsuit. And the money is cut for buyer and for buyer's broker or seller's agent. And she's talking about the wrong people. So short story long, me and Shamir did have to put a lien against the property to make sure that we were compensated for it, review all the paperwork. And because they went dark on us. They went dark on us for like 30 days. So like, we don't know what's going on.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So when that happened, we didn't know. So it was like the week of the closing, we heard nothing. So 4 o'clock on a Friday, the phone starts to blow up regarding the lien that was put on the property. So it happens, but it's rare. But they telegraphed their punch. It's never going to be like a surprise.
No,
and we knew something was coming, which is why, we enacted the lien law. But that's rare, like what you said. You normally show a lot of value. And if they would have came to me and said I have a problem with the commission, I would have probably reduced it because I didn't want to put a lien against the house. But
no, of course not. We tend to find out the easier route to do things, as long as you're not getting completely effed, is worth it, because we're in a volume business anyways. We're just trying to move on to the next deal. So,
but like what you said though, Emilio, normally no one's doing that. It's established. It's on MLS. We're protected that, we're entitled to the commission and,
exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of things in place, Steve, that just make sure that you get paid. This isn't like a handshake. It's like, hey, I'm supposed to get 2%. Where is my money? Like, it's like there's a lot of things that are validated already that you're supposed to be getting your money. So that being said, again, in the beginning, you'll get kind of your bearings, after doing quite a few transactions. So go ahead, Steve. Actually, go ahead.
Is the bank responsible for making sure that you get your commission more than the buyer?
No, it's the title company and the attorneys, because they're the ones cutting the checks when they're actually at the closing table. So the bank isn't like they're probably privy to these things, but all this is all the money related things. Say if the seller has a mortgage balance, when they're selling, and obviously they're taking proceeds and they're selling some of that, the buyer's check that they're getting cut, all these things get figured out and cut at the closing table. So again, a commission bill should have went out anyways before, say 2-3 days, a few days before the closing, validating what you're supposed to get cut. They just look at that and they go with it, and then they cut it. Now they do math at the closing table, and if they realize something's off, then they need to figure that out. But as long as you're not trying to finesse anyone out of money that you're not really supposed to get, you should get what you're entitled to.
So the seller's lawyer would end up cutting a check for you because he knows that you got to get your commission as the broker.
Well, yeah, among the checks that are cut, amongst all of them, because they're all cutting checks. They're all there making sure all the checks line up, and the brokers get their checks sort of toward the tail end of the you know, the closing.
Okay.
So you again, what Vinny said, crazy things do occur, especially here in New York City, but it's not common, and you usually know that it's gonna come if somebody like is gonna do something funny, like, you know, whatever that may be.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question. Is there anything else that I you know, through the midst of all the things that I was speaking about that maybe you guys want to touch on, questions, concerns?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm added on the buyer side, but I'm pretty sure it's the same with the seller side. At what point do the attorneys get called and step in?
Give me like a little bit more specific. Like what do you mean?
From the whole, when they go under contract, at what point do you start calling the attorneys like, hey, I have a client for you, at what point?
Okay. Okay, got it. I see what you're saying. Like you have a potential deal in the works. When is it the proper time for you to bring the attorneys to
get that's the exact
attorneys involved, right?
Yes. Okay,
cool. So I typically bring the attorney in if I'm representing the seller. I like to already. I'm big on setting expectations. I realize in this business, what's allowed me to make my life a lot easier, because I used to deal with a lot of headaches, and I still do now, but they're not nearly as much as when I started, because I learned how to be more efficient. The earlier you set expectation with your people, the better. So instead of like, oh, hey, Mr. Seller, I have a buyer. They want to buy your house for X amount. Do you like that? Okay, yeah, let's entertain these people. Okay, hey, they did an inspection. All right, let's talk about attorney. Most realtors probably do that. I don't do that. I have that conversation when we about to put it on the market. I say, hey, listen, you know, it's important to have your the same thing I'm telling you guys about having your team. I tell them the same thing. And I say, hey, listen, you know, it's important. And then it's so much easier to kind of, you know, steer them in a better direction when you do it ahead of time. So again, I'm not boxing anyone in. I'm doing it ethically and legally, and I'm giving them options. But I do obviously, hey, listen, this person, yeah, hey, listen, this person is somebody that I do a lot of business with. I have a lot of trust in and what they do. I would highly recommend, but these are some other people as well. What do you want to do? And if you've built the proper amount of rapport and set expectation with this person properly, they're more often gonna, you know, listen to you. So that being said, you know, I kind of do it sort of off rip. Like last couple of listings, I literally, when they sign listing documents that same week, I had them talking to the attorney just to make you know, introductions. So I would recommend you do it as soon as you have the listing. And then with your buyer, it's easier to maybe not necessarily have them already in conversation with one another, but to start talking to them, like planting that seed, like, hey, I have an amazing guy when we get to this, and so that it doesn't come like, you know, you're just trying to push people on them or anything like that after the fact.
How about a deposit? Do you ask for a deposit, Emilio, to fill out those serious buyers? Or if the house is hot,
yeah,
you got two or three people looking to buy this house. Do you want to get a deposit, or you don't want to get a deposit? Or how do you play that when the house is hot?
That's a good question. Give me 1 second. So I just want to before, you know, just in case people start kind of like, you know, leaving the room, being that I kind of concluded the main lesson, I'm going to put in the chat right now a link. This is to my I'm looking to do a lot better on Google reviews. So if you guys feel like you got value out of the steps that I explained, I have it in a G doc. If you follow the link that I sent there and leave me a review on just how this class was, you don't have to write anything grand or anything like that. Just, hey, you know, I got a value or I enjoyed the class, whatever. If you do that, you email me, I will send you that Google Doc with all the steps of how to take it from listed to close, which is all the things that I talked about in this class. It's like an 8-step process. It's very concise. All the things that I mentioned here is there. So I'm just gonna drop that review, the link there. If you follow it, do it, just send me an email, I'll send it back to you. So I just wanted to just mention that really quickly. Just give me 1 second so I can put that link and then I'll answer the question you just gave me.
Yeah, can I add to what you said earlier, Emil, about the team?
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, what I do in the consultation, I kind of let them know who my favorite attorney is, you know, in the consultation. I let them know, hey, here's our guy, he does a lot of our inspections. So they're seeing or hearing about it for the second time, you know, which can help you later on. We'll let them know who my entire team is. You need a guy that's going to do construction, here's his name, you know?
You're too fast, Emilio. I didn't get that. Your address there?
It's in the chat. You should be able to kind of scroll up. Thank you, Vinny, for throwing that in there, because it's true. When people hear things more than once, they usually, you know, they retain their information better. And I put in the chat the links in my email so that you guys have it there. Yeah, my email right under the link. Thank you for chiming in, Vinny, with that. Steve, so you were asking, can you just reiterate your question again really quick?
I was asking, I think, about a deposit. If the house is hot, you know, if the house, you got all these bites and I don't know, do you ask for
so
just the opposite and it's cold? If it's cold, then you got somebody you're dealing with, you might not want to deposit. When do you want to deposit?
So be clear, this is how I do my business. No one does their business exactly the same. I think that is best for you guys retaining information and that your business with little things that they provide that you feel like is going to be of value to your personality type and how you want to do business. So I just want to like give a disclaimer with that just really quick. Now, me personally, when it comes to taking any deposits or anything like that, I don't do that. I just move fast. So if I guess your concern is if you have a seller client and you have a buyer and you want them to give some sort of commitment, like, hey, I'm serious about buying this house, right? That's really right, Steve. That's what you mean, right?
Yes.
So what I just do is once I'm at the point that I have an entertainable offer with said buyer, whether they're through a broker or they're my own source buyer, I just move in a quick enough fashion, and New York City pretty much moves that way sort of anyways, that I don't need to collect the deposit to know if this person is committed, because I'm going to put them through the process really quickly, like within days. And I will see how they react to the process. And if I don't feel like they're moving at the speed that we need them to move, then I just drop it, because I'm not obligated to do business with them. And just like this, and the seller obviously is privy to all these things. They're not decisions I'm making purely myself. So what example of what this might look like? Okay, Monday, I did an open house Saturday. Sunday, I got an offer from a buyer that I really liked. Monday, I'm calling the buyer. Say, hey, listen, I like this offer. I checked in with your bank. Everything looks good. Let's proceed forward. You likely probably want to do an inspection, right, buyer? Say, hey, yes, I want to do an inspection. Okay, great. Do you have an inspector already in mind? We have that conversation. Whomever it is, whether it's my guy or their guy, they need to be in here within 2 to 3 days. You need to move this along. And I tell them, I say, hey, listen, you have an acceptable offer. That means that I'm not bound to you to do business, but we like the number. We'll proceed forward if you move in a timely fashion. Now, they do their inspection in a day, 2 days. More often than not, they adhere to what I'm telling them because they want to do the deal. So I move them along quick.
Well, can somebody step in if there's no deposit? Can somebody step in?
1,000%. And I make that very clear to them. That's what actually helps the deal move faster. So I think honestly, taking a deposit, if somebody were doing that, I think it could shoot you in the foot, kind of, because I'd rather leave it open. I'm telling them, I say, hey, Mr. Buyer, I like your deal. It's acceptable. I mean, I like your offer. It's acceptable, but I need you to move fast because we have other people that might step in and come in. Be clear that until we sign a contract, I'm telling them this on the beginning. We don't sign it until we sign a contract. I'm not bound to you to do a deal. So you need to move fast. So Wednesday, an inspection gets done. A contract goes out that next day. Friday, buyer signs the contract. Now, when they sign a contract, a down payment is put. That down payment is their deposit money. So that is sort of my procedure.
What is that, a binder?
What's that?
Is that a binder, that little down payment that you mentioned?
Well, I mean, a binder is technically really a sales sheet or offer sheet. That's usually what we refer to as a binder. It's a sheet saying what the offer is. Your binder is usually what a buyer will send you, saying how much down payment they're gonna put, what they're buying the house for. But again, their attorney, their job is to collect the down payment check, and that's what binds them to the house on top of the actual contract. So I make sure the case. So on Friday, end of day, I call and say, hey, Mr. Buyer attorney, did the buyer go in and sign? Okay, great. Did they leave you a check? Yes. Okay, great. I have my seller attorney reconfirm that, and then we're in business and we're good. If they didn't do that, then I'm entertaining other people. And I probably was doing that anyways.
So that down payment that they gave to their lawyer, the buyer gave to their lawyer, does that go to the?
It's going to go in an escrow account. It's going to go into an escrow.
Oh.
Yeah, it's going to go into an escrow, which
And that's
yeah.
their lawyer's escrow account?
Yeah. And they get verification from the other attorney verifies that money is indeed there.
Okay.
So once the money is in escrow, you're clear. You're in the clear. You can come and proceed with the deal. But until that happens, I would be entertaining everybody, because it's true. You don't have a deal until somebody signs a contract and gives you money. So hopefully that answers, that particular question, Steve. Is there anything else for anyone else? Or Steve, if you have another question, please shoot.
Question.
Yes.
Just what happens if you have multiple people who are interested and you're trying to get one person to do the inspection and to move it forward? Do you have any recommendations on how to keep the other people on the hook so that they don't take other offers from buy other houses? Any kind of strategy?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm dealing with that right now. I know I mentioned to you guys, I have a listing right now in Canberra Heights, and we're getting like a tremendous amount of interest in it. And we've had to deal with things like that, where we're like, what's the saying? Don't count your chickens or hatch your
before they hatch. Don't count your chickens before they hatch.
Yeah, that saying. So exactly. So hold on a second. It says my internet's acting up. Are you guys hearing me fine right now?
Yeah.
Before I continue, is everything okay?
Yep.
Good.
Marilyn, you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I hear you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So the way that you kind of maneuver in a situation like that is, I would certainly encourage you. You don't want to be leading too many people on. If you have a situation where you have a listing that's hot, that isn't fair to anyone. So when I'm vetting the offers and doing all the due diligence that I mentioned that I do, to make sure that the offers are good, I'm picking like 2 or 3 offers, and not 3 is usually a good number if you have enough. Anything more than that is unfair. Like, you shouldn't be leading people on to make it seem like, you're going to entertain something you're not. So at most I've ever had that I'm actually having real conversations with them and proceeding forward with them past the point of them presenting an offer is 3 people. I let them know they have an acceptable offer, and allow them to show up, but also being ethical by disclosing what it is that's happening. It's, hey, listen, we have 1 or 2 other people. They have a very good offer that we find acceptable as well. And we are in a position to just, we don't want to be left high and dry and putting all our eggs in one basket. And because of that, that's why we're allowing you to have a chance at the house as well. When is the soonest that you can move? And if it's a big disparity between the buyers and they're telling me verbally that they can move this fast, I'll just eliminate them from there and just be transparent. Say, hey, listen, we can get a contract signed here. Can you do that? If you can't do that, then we unfortunately, we're gonna have to accept another offer. So we're being transparent to some degree that you're not jeopardizing your client's, best interest. But also making sure that you have, options is completely okay. So that being said, you don't know sometimes that if somebody does an inspection with one inspector, say you're not familiar with, he comes sabotage your deal, and then you don't have any deal because you didn't pursue anything with anyone else. So I would encourage you to do it, but it should be 2 to 3 people max. It shouldn't be anything more than that. That's why you log all these people, so that if something falls apart, you can call them back because you have them on the log. So hopefully, Marilyn, that kind of, answered that question. If it didn't, you can let me know.
Emmy,
Helpful, thank you.
Emmy, if you got a situation with your house there at 630, right? 640, you got a cash buyer and you got a guy that's waiting for approval. is it up to the owner to say, okay, you know, the cash guy is going to give me 630, but the loan we're waiting for is 650 or 670. Is it up to the owner to say, okay, I'm going with the cash deal?
An accepted offer is, be clear, the word I'm using, accepted or acceptable offer is purely dictated by your client, the seller. You can only advise. You tell them what you think, in your opinion, but they are the people that are making the decision. Usually, if you have good rapport with your client, they will ask your opinion and say, hey, Emilio, we have these two things. What do you think? And you can give that to them, but they're ultimately the ones making the decision. So in a case like that, cash is great. Cash is king. It definitely is. You know, it really depends on what the circumstances are. So if I have a situation like I have with that particular house where we're not in a place where we have to have the fastest deal ever, because cash deals obviously close a lot faster because you don't have a bank that is delaying things. Banks are usually the ones that make a deal happen in 3 months, you know, 4 months. If you have a cash deal, you can probably do it in 30, 45 days. Now, if I don't have a client that's super pressed to have to move really quick or want to sell super fast, the mortgage or the cash may not necessarily make a big difference. So if it's a very comparable deal, then it kind of is to the discretion of the seller. So now if it's a situation where we want to move really fast, then the cash always, you know, obviously makes sense. And maybe they're offering a little bit less, but it's cash and they rather do the deal that way. But it's really it's the seller's choice.
Okay.
So, yeah, that answered that, right? See?
So what about on a tie like a tie bid on a house? Does the owner still say, oh, I want to sell it to Mr. B, not Mr. C?
I mean, I've had people that are emotionally invested in their property, and maybe for whatever reason, I had, you know, told them a little bit about the buyer. Maybe they have cameras in their house and they saw these people, you know, and they want to give their 2 cents, and it has nothing to do with business. I just make sure that it stays on business. So again, I can't make them decide on buyer A or buyer B, but I will talk to them about the numbers of things and the terms. Like I have a buyer now, they've given us the best offer for that Canberra Heights property, but they need to sell a house. I'm talking to my client, I'm telling them the truth. I say, hey, listen, if they have that buyer fall apart for the sale they're doing, and they're using those proceeds, if we have other offers that are comparable and they don't need to sell a house, it might make sense to go with those offers so you don't have an issue. So that, you know, that's where your expertise comes in and you guide your client. But again, they make the decision ultimately themselves.
Got it.
Yeah, what Vinny said, contingencies go last. Yeah, exactly. That's true. If it's contingent on something, then you need to be a bit careful. If you're boxed in, that's the only offer you got, then sometimes you need to play ball. Because I mean, I've had clients of mine, they're selling their property, and I want an agent to take them. So, you know, I look at it that way sometimes too. You know, I want to try to be, you know, understanding to some degree, but you want to do the best business for your client. So you want to keep all that stuff in mind. Anything else? Okay, cool. So thank you guys for joining me. Again, in the chat, I left the link there. If you are interested in the document that has all the information that I put here, I made it very concise. It's like a 1 through 8 list. The things you want to do from listing to closing. I can share that with you guys if you like. Again, just leave me a review. I would appreciate it. And thank you guys again. I appreciate you taking the time to actually sit and, you know, learn some stuff. I'm always of service. My email's there. If you have any questions, you can email me. You can call me. Again, I'm on the ALC too, so you'll see me around the office. And I wish you guys all of luck. I hope you have a
good job.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Have a good week, guys. We'll talk.
I appreciate it, man. I already sent the email and left the reviews.
I like it. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you, Emilio.
All right, guys.
It's a nice place.
Thanks, man. All right, bye.
Bye.